All right. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for attending this public information meeting and CPA scoping meeting for state project number 301-214, 300-214 and 301-550, TIME-1 and new interlockings for Metro-North Railroad improvements. And I welcome you all. And my name is Haresh Tolakia, and I am project manager for this project. Tonight, I will walk you through the goals of this project, and I will introduce my team also who was working on this project. And we will have a presentation from our consultant, Jacobs Engineering, who will provide details of this project. So again, as I mentioned, this is state project number 300-214 and 300-550, TIME-1 and new interlockings, Metro-North Railroad improvements, Bridgeport and Stratford Railroads, speed increase, and 7 bridge replacements, Stratford and Milford high-speed interlock installations, hybrid public information meeting, and CPA scoping meeting. So join us for a question and answer sessions following the formal presentation, and send us your question or comments during the sessions. And project email is dot-project300-214@ct.gov. Phone number is 860-594-2030, and it's voicemail only. And visit the project webpage at the following link. A recording of this presentation will be posted after the live event. How to view the captions or the subtitles are presented on the screen. Caption and subtitles is Zoom only. Click the show caption button. Click the speaking language button. Select the language you need from the list. State project number 300-214, TIME-1 new interlocking improvements. So there is a meeting overviews, housekeepings, formal presentation of design, explain existing conditions and define purpose and need, proposed recommendations, and live question and answer sessions will follow. Question and answer by emails, dot-project300-214@ct.gov, by phone 860-594-2020, by chat. Zoom question and answers will be posted to the Zoom chat event. Project web page is at the link. And note that the comment period is open through May 9, 2023. And Zoom question and answer session is only available during live question and answer sessions. How to use Zoom question and answers. Select the Zoom question and answers tool at the bottom of the Zoom webinar window. The question and answer window will open as soon as seen on the right side of the screen. Please type question in the text box and click enter. If you are an audio only participants, dial *9 to raise and lower your hand. Now I will introduce the project team. Bart Sweeney is the division chief of the bridges. Bao Chong, the principal engineer, who is present here. My name is Haresh Tolakia, as I mentioned. Kevin Fleming is the NEPA and CPA transportation planner for the city DOT. He is present here. Matt Ginapopoulos is our rights of way person, and Aaron Foster is our CLE team, working as a project engineer. Other part of the project team is the Jacobs Engineering. His name is Tim Ryan. He's the project manager for Jacobs. John Hapkiewicz is the principal in charge for the Jacobs, and Matt Restivo is the deputy project manager for Jacobs. Now I will call Luis, who will present the Title 6 notice to the public.
The Connecticut Department of Transportation operates its programs and services without regard to race, color, and national origin, and according to Title 6 of the Civil Rights Act. Any person who believes she or he has been aggrieved by any unlawful discrimination practice under Title 6 may file a complaint with the CTDOT. El Departamento de Transporte de Connecticut se compromete a asegurar que ninguna persona sea excluida de participar en o le sean negados los beneficios de su servicio de transporte basándose en la raza, color o país de origen de la persona protegida por el título 6 de la Ley de los Derechos Civiles. Si a usted le parece que ha sido objeto de discriminación en lo que corresponde al título 6, puede presentar una queja al CTDOT. En la página se encuentran las direcciones. On the title, you can see the directions on how to file it. Now, Kevin will be here.
Thanks, Louis. Everybody can hear me all right? Good, all right. Well, hello, everybody. Thanks for coming out tonight. My name is Kevin Fleming, and I'm a transportation planner here at DOT in the Office of Environmental Planning. As mentioned, we're here tonight for a public informational / SEPA scoping meeting. So what exactly does that mean? Well, the Connecticut Environmental Policy Act, or SEPA, provides a public process for the various state agencies to follow to identify and review any action that may have an adverse effect on the environment. And since it is a public process, a really important component of SEPA itself is the public's opportunity to review a project and give feedback. So your comments here tonight and throughout the entire public comment period, which expires on May 9th, I believe, is a really critical part of a successful SEPA process. Next slide. All right. And as you can see here, we have to consider a really wide range of environmental resources under SEPA. And although this isn't necessarily an all-encompassing list, it should give you a pretty good idea of the types of resources we have to evaluate under the Connecticut Environmental Policy Act. We have to look at everything from impacts to cultural resources and noise, to recreational facilities and impacts to environmental justice communities. And actually, in the case of this particular project, since there's federal funding involved, we actually have to ensure compliance with the National Environmental Policy Act as well. So now you have a really general idea of what SEPA is and what resources need to be evaluated. What do we mean by the term scoping? So as shown here, SEPA scoping is defined as the gathering and analysis of information that a state agency will use to establish the extent of environmental review for a proposed project. So basically what that says is it's a way for us to get information from the public and the other state agencies so we can determine the proper level of environmental review and documentation needed for a particular project. Now, this particular process begins when we publish a notice of the project in the Environmental Monitor, and that kicks off a minimum 30-day public comment period. So for those of you who are not familiar what the Environmental Monitor is, it's an online publication that's run by the Connecticut Council on Environmental Quality, and it informs the public of all the projects that have to go through the SEPA process. So for this particular project, the SEPA notice appeared back on April 4th, and as I mentioned, the comment period will run until the close of business on May 9th. Scoping can help us identify potential alternatives and also help identify any specific environmental resources that need to be analyzed. Obviously, as you know, the local community has a really unique knowledge of the project area, including not only the resources in the area, but also of any community concerns, issues, or controversies that we as the DOT just might not be aware of. And then ultimately, the scoping process will help us determine if there are any significant environmental impacts associated with the project, and if there's a need to undertake an environmental impact evaluation, or an EIE. An EIE is a detailed and comprehensive document that analyzes any significant impacts and compares the impacts of any alternatives considered. So just to follow up really quickly, here's a very high level chart of the overall SEPA process. It shows where we are currently, and those are the boxes that are outlined in red. And then it also shows what the next steps are under the SEPA process. So ultimately, after the SEPA period ends on May 9th, we'll go ahead and review all of the comments we've received. We'll consider any environmental impacts, and then we'll go ahead and determine if an EIE is needed or not. Now, once that determination is made, the determination itself and the justification behind it will be published in the Environmental Monitor, along with a synopsis of the comments received and our responses to those comments. Now, this will inform the public that we have either concluded the SEPA process, or we'll be doing further analysis in the form of an EIE due to the presence of significant impacts. but we will not know that until the SEPA process is officially concluded. We've had a chance to examine all of the environmental impacts and the comments we've received. So with that, I just want to thank you for your time. And I'll hand the presentation over to Aaron to discuss the purpose.
All right, can everyone hear me? All right. This begins the technical portion of the 300-214 and 301-550 project. Track improvement, mobility enhancement, TIME-1, project 300-214. The purpose of this project is to increase the maximum authorized speed of the 3-mile section of Metro-North Railroad from Bridgeport through Stratford from 70 to 90 miles an hour. We tape something to it. And then address corridor deficiencies and provide operational enhancements. The new interlockings project, 301-550. The purpose of this project is to construct new interlockings within the TIME-1 project limits and to allow for high-speed track changes, improved train operations, and improved maintenance and scheduling. Like I noted, the primary purpose to increase the speed from 70 to 90 miles an hour for the max authorized speed and address corridor deficiencies. In order to meet that purpose, we're going to set new track with a 14-foot track center spacing where allowed. We're going to improve the track from a class 4 to a class 6 track. We're going to smooth out curves within the railroad right away and provide super elevation at those curves. We're going to replace old deficient open deck rail bridges with new ballasted deck bridges. We're going to raise a local road over tracks to provide required clearances. And we're going to preserve 2 tracks during construction to maintain these track operations. Goals of this project include, we're going to use accelerated bridge construction techniques and 2-track rolling outages to reduce construction time. We're going to improve or maintain under clearances of structures carrying Metro-North Railroad. We're going to remove the mud spots along the rail bed, reestablish a portion of track 5 to move freight off the main line, and we're going to construct a new interlock at CP 259 and 1 track row crossover at 261. This slide shows the project limits from due east of Seaview Avenue in Bridgeport on the left side of the screen, all the way through East Main Street and just due east of East Main Street in Stratford. Part of this project, we're replacing the catenaries from approximately Bishop Avenue all the way through East Main Street. And then in the center there, where we have the tangent section of track, is where we're going to put the new high-speed CP 259 interlocking. These are some shots of our existing infrastructure, the existing bridges out there. In the top left-hand corner, we have Bishop Avenue, top right, Bruce Avenue. Bottom left, we have West Broad Street, and the bottom right, we have King Street. On this slide, we have Main Street in the top left, Longbrook Avenue in the top right, and then East Main Street in the bottom left. I'm going to hand this over to Tim Ryan to do the rest of the technical section.
Good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Tim Ryan, and I'm a registered professional engineer in the state of Connecticut, and I'm a project manager for Jacobs Engineering. All right, now for the good stuff. So there's a number of proposed improvements along the corridor to take the maximum authorized speed from 70 miles an hour to 90 miles an hour. And we're going to talk about some roadway and bridge improvements in a second, but I just wanted to take a moment to talk about the actual rail corridor first. So this is a cross section taken in the middle of our rail corridor. And there's a couple of things I want to point out. So the gray tracks are on the bottom, and you can see there's a dimension there. There's the existing tracks have a 12-foot dimension between the center line of tracks. And one of the things we want to do as part of this project is to increase that distance between tracks to 14 feet. And this graphic basically shows that we can still fit that within the rail right away, even though we're widening the track that used to be an old track that we're taking out. So there is some space there. So it's within the existing right away. And also this section shows that there is a profile raise for the tracks in the middle of the corridor. As you see for most of the bridges, they're very tight horizontally and vertically. So one of our goals is to try to open that up as best we can. And in this section, we're able to raise the tracks to increase the vertical clearances on some of these bridges. As Aaron mentioned, there's also some other horizontal changes to increase the speed from 70 to 90. But this is in the middle of the corridor. It shows that track raise. Next slide. Also, as part of the project, there's 2 interlockings, and in layman's terms, this is really it's an operational improvement for the trains to cross over between tracks. There's 4 main tracks going through there, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and this will help to for the trains operationally to switch during maintenance activities, which will be more intense with the 90-mile-an-hour speed. And also for construction of the Devon Bridge. So that's part of the project as well. Right. So here's the corridor again, and I'm going to start on the left-hand side, bottom left. So that's going to be Bishop Avenue. And then we're going to go to the, which would be to the east or towards, would be New Haven along the rail corridor. So let's start with Bishop. So there are boards throughout the room on the entrances and also over there as well. If you want to get into a little more detail, I know these graphics can be a little bit small here, but this is showing, if just start with the colors here. So the yellow is new construction, new roadway construction, and the orange is new sidewalk or new bridge. So for this particular bridge, we'll be replacing the bridge. A lot of the bridges on this corridor are built in the late 1800s, early 1900s. They're all pretty old. So our goal is to address the structural deficiencies and also to try to open up that the vertical clearance and horizontal clearances as well. So this is showing just Bishop construction here, really ancillary to the bridge, not much going on. I'll go to the next slide. So next slide in the bottom right is what you would see if you were driving through there. And then in the top left, we have bridge elevation showing what it's we're proposing it to look like. So we were not able to raise the tracks in this particular bridge because some other corridor constraints. So we have a table in the middle. You probably can't see some of that text, but on the board you'll be able to see it, where we talk about the existing vertical clearance, the existing width, and also the proposed width and vertical clearance. So for this one, we wouldn't be able to change the vertical clearance. However, we were able to add sidewalks on both sides, and this is a 3-span bridge where it shows the traffic lanes and also the sidewalks on the other side of the pier. So this was much like Main Street, if you're familiar with that crossing, with sidewalks on the other side of the piers. This is what this one would look like. This is a detour route. I can't see from here, but the detour would be from Bruce Avenue to US Route 1. And for all of the bridges, we anticipate that there will be a short duration closure for bridge construction. We don't know the exact length of the closure, but we're doing everything we can to minimize that length at all of these bridges. And we're about to embark on a traffic study to look at, if one bridge was closed, where is that traffic going to go? And then take that additional volume to the next bridge or wherever it's going to be, and then do an analysis on that bridge to make sure that there's not too much delay during construction. All right, the next bridge is Bruce Avenue. So Bruce Avenue, much like Bishop, the roadway construction is really ancillary to the bridge. We also looked at drainage in this area here because it does flood because of Bruce Brook from Bruce Pond. So we did an extensive study and tried to come up with some ideas or some types of mitigation for that flooding. And it turned into well beyond the scope of this project. There are some downstream constraints heading towards 95. So we thought that we wouldn't be able to include it with this project just because of the scope and our purpose and need for this project. Let's go to the next slide. So this slide shows that we do have a slight raise in the profile here of the tracks, so we are able to raise the vertical clearance. The existing vertical clearance, I can't see those numbers. 10 what? The existing vertical clearance 10 feet, and then the proposed would be 11. So that's a 1 foot raise. We would like to raise it to 14 feet, but there are constraints at both Bishop and Bruce. There's a major utility corridors. We've talked to several utility companies. Also, drainage is also an issue if we get too low because we're already flooding. We get into some pump stations, which we're probably going to have because it just gravity systems don't work when we're so close to the shore. So the detour for this bridge would be the opposite of Bishop. We would use Bishop, so that would have to be open when we close the road at Bruce, and then we go to US Route 1 and then back down again. All right, next bridge is West Broad. So West Broad has a little more construction, as you can see here. We did traffic study for West Broad. We did a traffic study for Main Street and a traffic study for East Main Street. And what we found out here is their traffic does queue from the intersection at Linden Avenue back underneath the bridge, then onto California and Knowlton. So what we did is increased the roadway width underneath the bridge to 3 lanes so that those cars can be stored within that roadway section and they don't spill over to the intersection to the north. So that's going to be a widened section through here over what's existing. And it shows the bridge elevation, pretty dramatic change from existing in the bottom right. With a 10'9" posted, the vertical clearance is 11, and this one would be increased to 12'7". So about 19 inches, pretty significant. Also, roadway would be wider here, so it's really going to open up, and it helps obviously with the interchange of 95 just south of there. And then that shows the detour route for West Broad, and probably not being able to see it too much on the screen, but again, we do have boards throughout if you want to look a little more detail. All right, next bridge is King Street. So King Street is existing is a narrow and also a low vertical clearance. There's also a steep grade coming off of Linden as well. So this is again going to be a total bridge replacement, and you can see the roadway reconstruction limits here. Let me go to the next slide. This shows again pretty dramatically bottom right hand corner showing the existing elevation view versus the proposed view in the top left hand corner. So with full shoulders and a full sidewalk. And this bridge, we were able to raise the tracks about 2 feet, which is going to increase the vertical clearance area well. The existing is 11'3", and the proposed is 12'2". You can see that it is posted less than 11'3", and that's because of the vertical geometry. It's not just the actual low core of the bridge; it's the approach to it. So. We've looked at that as well, and we're able to increase that vertical clearance. We just saw a bus go underneath there on the way here today, and it was pretty tight, but they were able to go through it existing. And then there's the detour for King. Next bridge is Main Street, which is State Route 113. So for Main Street, there's a lot going on here. Obviously, Stratford Station is right adjacent to Main Street. We also did a traffic study here because we noticed that there were some delays, and really the signals weren't operating very efficiently. So we looked to make some changes to the signalization of the both intersections north and south with Broadbridge and Linden. And what we found out is there are some cues, traffic cues generated by cars stuck in an intersection. So the intersection is very narrow because of the bridge. So if a car was going southbound, and you can see the north arrow there, so the station is on the bottom of the screen here. So if you were heading southbound and you were going to take a left into the commuter parking lot, there wasn't many cars doing that, but once one car did that, there was not enough room for other cars to bypass that one car in the intersection, which caused cars to queue back to the north and into the next intersection. So what we're proposing to do is widen the road there, but not put additional lanes, but put bigger shoulders to allow cars to bypass cars that are stuck in the intersection waiting to turn left. Also, you can see the highlighted, I think it's a reddish orange color. Those are the platforms. So there's going to be some platform reconstruction because of the wider centers between each of the tracks, and also because of the increased vertical alignment or horizontal or vertical raise in profile. So those both platforms will be reconstructed as part of this project. And we also recognize that because there are a lot of pedestrians here, that we're going to have to really do a good job of maintaining pedestrian traffic during construction. So we will be looking at that to make sure that's maintained. And also we're aware that the town does have a bike plan, and this is used as a dedicated bike route. So we're going to accommodate bikes here as well. So this is, I mentioned this crossing before being a 3-span bridge with the sidewalks on the other side of the piers. Our proposed section is going to look very, very similar. Culverts that are right underneath the road with very little cover. So we weren't able to lower the road here. Any raise in the vertical clearance is due primarily with the profile raise of the railroad. So the existing vertical clearance is 13.6 here, and we're going to 13.9, which was mandated with our state grant application. Because this is a state road, the state detour will be on state route, so it's a little longer than some of the other town roads that you see here. Again, we're going to do everything we can to minimize the closure times, so the detour will be in effect for as little as possible. Next bridge is Longbrook Avenue. So this bridge, it goes over the tracks, whereas the other bridges that were railroad over a local road or a state route. So this one has significantly more roadway construction. This is because the existing bridge over the tracks has a very, well, a substandard vertical clearance. So we need to raise that for the higher speeds and the catenaries that go underneath the bridge. Right now, the catenaries are too close to the bottom part of the bridge, so we need to raise it. And it's pretty significant. It's about a 4-foot raise in the profile. So this is the proposed reconstruction to be able to raise that profile. And there you can see in the bottom right, the existing bridge over the tracks. And then in the top left, you can see the proposed bridge going over. So vertical clearance wise, existing is 17.7, and we need to be about 22.6, which is our minimum vertical clearance over electrified rail. And there's the detour for Longbrook. And then the last bridge is East Main Street on the eastern side of our project. It's State Route 110. So this is also a crossing or a bridge that we did a traffic study on, because it's an arterial route. There's a lot of volume here. So if we're building the bridge that's going to be here for 75 years, we wanted to do our due diligence and look at. We took traffic counts in 2022 and 2023, and then projected them to our design year, which is typically about 20 years in the future, to account for any growth. And what we found is it operates pretty well. There isn't a queue that backs up underneath the bridge and beyond, and we feel verified that. So what we're proposing right now is still 2 lanes under the bridge and possibly a little bit wider for tapers. Still in the middle of that design process, but it doesn't look like a full 3rd lane is warranted based on the traffic analysis. Just can you go back to that one more? And I want one more thing on that one. So we were not able to raise the tracks here for some other project constraints, the Devon Bridge being just to the east. So we had to make up the vertical clearance in lowering the roadway. So this has a pretty significant roadway lowering, about 3.5 to 4 feet here. And we're pretty certain this is going to need a pump station for drainage because the gravity system would not work here. So the vertical clearance, okay, now on the next slide, it's going from 11'4" to 13'9". So pretty significant raise here. And also because we're next to an interchange, we thought it's really important to really target certain crossings for as much vertical clearance as we could. And then there's the detour route for East Main Street. Okay, now I'll turn it over to Matt to talk about the rights-of-way process.
Thank you, Tim. Good evening, everybody. My name is Matt Giannakopoulos. I'm a project coordinator with the Department's Division of Rights-of-Way. I'm here tonight because at this stage in our design, we expect that the project will require the acquisition of some slope easements and/or temporary construction easements from at least some of the properties adjacent to the various bridges. So I just want to give a brief rundown of our process in the event that it is necessary. So now an easement is a type of property right that the department acquires when it needs to use private property for a specific purpose, but it doesn't need to own that property outright. So the exact extent and the limits of the easements that may be necessary will be determined further on in the design process. But at this point, we do not anticipate the need for any outright land acquisitions or impacts to any buildings or structures or displacing any people or businesses. So I don't want anybody to worry about that. Any property rights that end up being required for the project will be acquired in accordance with Connecticut General Statutes sections 13A-73 and 13B-36. And whenever there is federal money used in any phase of a project, the department must adhere to what is known as the Uniform Act. Once the design has progressed to the point where we know exactly what property rights are required and we're ready to begin the right-of-way acquisition process, each impacted property owner receives a letter of intent to acquire along with a property map which depicts the exact rights to be acquired. At that point, we determine the fair market value of those rights. And we use that to establish an offer of just compensation. That offer gets sent out to the property owners in writing, and a right-of-way agent from our office is available to meet with the property owner, and they can explain in detail the project, the impacts to that particular property, and explain how the department came up with their offer. The property owner has a reasonable time to consider the offer and enter into negotiations if they choose. And once an agreement is reached, the DOT prepares all the paperwork to transfer those property rights. They'll schedule a closing and they'll file any deeds and the property map on the town land records. However, if negotiations reach an impasse, the department may acquire the rights it needs for the project through its power of eminent domain. And what happens in that case is the department files a notice in the local superior court along with a monetary deposit in the amount of that offer of compensation. The property owner has 6 months from that date to file for an appeal if they thought that the offer was inadequate. Now, whether or not the owner elects to use their right to appeal, the money that was deposited in the court, the owner can apply to withdraw that at any time. So I know a lot of times people hear eminent domain, they think it means the state takes their whole property for $1, but that's not the case. Everybody's entitled, or the owners are entitled to that offer of just compensation, and the state only takes title to the property rights it needs to allow the project to move forward. So in this case, it would be some slope easements or maybe temporary construction easements during the project. I'll answer any questions about our process when the presentation has concluded, but in the meantime, I'm going to hand it over to Aaron to wrap up.
All right, our the anticipated project schedule and funding for this project. In August of 2023, we're going to complete the NEPA and design approval process. In July of 2024, we're going to complete the design for this project. April 2025, we'll begin breakout projects, construction projects, including utility, catenary, and other initial projects. In April 2026, we'll begin the track and bridge replacement on this project, the 2 southern tracks. In April 2027, we'll continue track and bridge replacements for the 2 northern tracks. In November of that year, we intend to complete the bridge replacements. The following year in April, we'll begin the center track outage, the center interlock work. In November of 2028, we anticipate completing this project and completing closeout tasks. This project is anticipated to use state and federal funds for the, to fund this project. We're here this evening to hear your comments and input on this project. We'll be taking questions live from folks on Zoom and phone or email. By email, if you email us at dotprojects300-214@ct.gov. If you leave a voicemail at 860-594-2020, or if you ask it in the live Zoom Q&A, we're here to answer questions tonight. We'll leave this comment period open until May 9th via email or phone. Thank you. Like this. All right, we already received a few questions online. The first question was, how does this cost hundreds of millions just to save 40 seconds and only for work within the right-of-way? This project includes replacing of 120-year-old deficient bridges, 7 of them, and it includes replacing the entire catenary system between Bishop and East Main Street. Anything you want to add to that? We have another question. How much of the project work is in state of good repair work? Like I just noted, there's 7 bridges. A number of them are in poor condition and need to be repaired or replaced. This project will be able to achieve replacing all of those. Also, just as I noted, the catenary system will be replaced, and that's also 110 years old. There's another question. Can you please include raising the East Main Bridge? We are increasing the vertical clearance of that bridge to 13 feet 9 inches. I believe it was around 11 feet existing. 11.1. That's our greatest increase of all the bridges in the area in this project. I think that answers that question. All right. What is being done to improve maintenance practices of the New Haven line to the near continuous regular maintenance and construction along New Haven's lines, aging infrastructure since the 90s, often restricting a 4-track railroad to only a 2-track operation along portions while work is going on? Are track laying machines being considered? This project is replacing 7 bridges that will significantly reduce the amount of maintenance required on a daily, monthly, annual basis. We're also going to be removing mud spots that'll help the ballast, reprofiling the track, replacing track and ties as part of this project. So a lot of the things we're doing as part of this project is trying to achieve state of good repairs. Are track laying machines being considered? Yeah, we're considering track laying machines. All right, Kevin, this one's for you. You want to come up in a second? Yeah, you can. Right. Is there work within the right-of-way If the work is within the right of way, then why is SEPA review required?
So for this particular project, we have to go through a SEPA review because the age of the bridges. We have to determine, because the bridges are old, I believe some of them are actually eligible for a listing in the National Register of Historic Places. So anytime we're going to be replacing a bridge that's listed, we have to scope it accordingly under SEPA, regardless if it's in our right of way or not.
And then we have another question from online. Is using modern maintenance trains like Roble tested by SNCF to allow maintenance work to take place during the day while eliminating speed restrictions? As part of this project, we're replacing all 4 tracks. We're widening them, and we're taking 2 tracks out during the construction process to completely relay them along with the bridges on, in those sections. Else. What if there is Raymark waste by East Main Street Bridge? Part of the design on the East Main Street Bridge, and we're acutely aware of the Superfund sites north and south of that site. We are going to be completing environmental screening of all the material that we find in the site. If we find Raymark waste, we will use best practices and our folks in the environmental compliance unit at the DOT will test, remediate, and take care of that material properly. Part of the design was to keep East Main Street to a minimum so that we have less impact to that area. The next question, are they doing any improvements to current train parking lot? This project is not considering any improvements to the current train parking lot. How about Bruce Brook Culvert and Tanner's Brook? Our engineering team did an extensive look into Bruce Brook Culvert that tried to see if there was improvements there, with the focus on Bruce Ave to see what we could do to alleviate flooding there. The design team, like Tim mentioned before, is considering drainage improvements at Bruce Ave and possibly a pump station to eliminate flooding situations at that location. Tanner's Brook, we know the town has done a number of projects recently on Tanner's Brook to help the area. This project is not touching Tanner's Brook, even though it goes under some of the roads in the area, but we don't intend to touch Tanner's Brook. And then when will the Devon movable bridge be replaced? Dave, that's a question for you.
Yeah, hi, I'm Dave Grador. I'm a project engineer and I'm assigned to the, still no, yeah, better. I'm Dave Grador. I'm a project engineer for the Devon Bridge project. So at this time, what I can say is we have done preliminary engineering as a part of that project, and it is a priority. We are looking at replacing that sometime in the future. It doesn't have an exact time frame right now, but currently we're anticipating sometime right now around 2030 potentially to be looking at beginning work on that project.
Anyone in the audience have any questions? Sure. Yes. First one.
Basically lower the soil there. And now there's an existing Raymark. Now this getting into consideration. Maybe there are any another station.
Great question. So for folks on Zoom, the question was at East Main Street, there is an EPA project going on in the area for the Superfund site that is installing a pump station. And the question was, will a pump station at the East Main Street Bridge for this project be in addition to that pump station? The answer is yes. The lowering that we have at this location will require an additional pump station to get to that location.
Second question is, if you're redoing platform train station, will be longer now?
Yuri, you want to answer that?
And will it be narrow?
So I'll repeat your question. I'll call on Yuri and then I'll ask your question. So the question was, will the train station platform be lengthened for this project?
So good evening, everyone. My name is Yuri Kulgis. I'm an assistant rail administrator for the Office of Rail. Thank everyone for coming in person and also joining remotely. Mayor Hoydick, nice to see you again. So question is about the platforms. We are evaluating the platform. We did meet with the mayor. We understand the concern right now, and we are accelerating the replacement of the platform, which is part of the project. As I mentioned to Mayor, goal of the department is to extend the platform, and we are evaluating if we could do this as part of this project. So we're looking into that because, again, thank you, Mayor. We met with you. Thank you.
So the question for the folks on Zoom, was, how long will the train platforms be in the future?
Thank you. At this point, we don't know the extension of the platform, but we are evaluating that. Again, the extent of the project or the intent of the project is to increase the speeds, to replace the bridges. And as we mentioned with the mayor and the concern, we are replacing the platforms, but we are evaluating at this time, the length. Go ahead.
So what's the project? And the platform in station use. And my other question is, how much of this project is going to use that?
All right, so the two statements and questions are, if there's a longer platform, will it reduce the amount of time it takes to board the train? That's the.
Go to the budget. Do it less time in station.
Yes, so this project is intended to at least maintain the 4-car platform. We are also, as Yuri mentioned, the department is, looking at the engineering of a longer platform, but hasn't come up with any determinations yet. The statement about, boarding time and, reducing that, that should be evaluated, and, we'll make sure to take that into consideration. And then you had one other statement, sir, about.
Question that this project.
Yeah.
No, definitely. Thank you, because we have another consultant, our planning consultant, looking at the time savings. We are working with the governor's initiative, the Time for CT, and the area of focus with the infrastructure. This is part of the project. The project is definitely saving time. As you talk about, our plan is by 2035 to save those 25 minutes. And this project is a key in order to accomplish that. So I'll definitely get back to you about the specific time that the project is going to save. Why? Because the project is currently in design, but that is part of the 35 minutes, 25 minutes, okay? Thank you.
question, I live on Dalton Street, right opposite our house, which is a sound barrier, 95. I'm interested in whether or not the work is going to cut into it.
So the question for the folks online is, how much tree clearing will be occurring in the one of Nolan Street?
Yeah.
You know, and to answer you, you know, this project is intended to stay within the existing right of way of it's intended to stay within the existing right of way of the track. I can't give you a definite answer of what trees will be cut down, but if we're staying within the right of way, we're probably not cutting any trees down in that area. And, you know, we'll do our best to, you know, we will do our best to sharpen our pencils and make sure that we, you know, maintain trees as best possible.
You know, I live by East Main here. I think it's why East Main Street, East one more lane. And my street, that's the stop shop. On the other way, people try to turn in the stop and shop. You get 10 more feet. Stop. Everything is going to pass. They're going to remind me here.
All right, so a comment from the folks online is East Main Street. There's local observation of backed up cars in either direction and a request for 10 additional feet of lane on the side going northbound, correct? We will take that comment and we'll look into it. Thank you. Sir. Longbrook. Oh, Barnum Ave, yes, cut off. So the question for the folks online was Barnum Avenue cut off Route 1. Will sidewalks be added on that project? And the answer is yes. Sidewalks are being added as part of that project's construction in either direction. It's a separate project from this project, but we are aware of that project. I will call on the gentleman there and then you. The current proposed project was to maintain 2 lanes in either direction. The gentleman 2 seats in front of you suggested widening Main Street or East Main Street. Are you asking East Main or Main Street? Oh, yeah. Thank you. So the question was, will we be widening Main Street? I believe there's, yeah, I'm going to call on Tim for this one. And Tom, you want to go back to the slide that shows Main Street?
Okay, so this is the Main Street slide again, and we talked about the really closely spaced intersections north and south of the rail corridor, and it really operating kind of inefficiently with the signal timing that's out there now. So we looked at ways of improving operations at this particular location, and one of the ways, believe it or not, is really just changing the timings of some of those signals, and it will operate more efficiently. But also, we looked at widening the roadway underneath the bridge to allow vehicles to bypass cars that are taking left-hand turns, which you cannot do today. So if you have one vehicle taking a left-hand turn, it causes a queue spill back to the next intersection. And we also looked at adding additional lanes, but because of the very short section between the intersections, the cars were really not able to get there to use that extra capacity. So we felt the best way to address the operations here was signal timing and to widen the curb the curb to curb width to allow vehicles to bypass cars that are turning left. Pinch point.
I understand on speed. Go that way if you're running there. If you're running there.
So first, the question is, will the bridge accommodate the bike lanes here, right? Correct? Bike and pedestrian. So pedestrian, we will definitely address. It's a well-traveled corridor for pedestrians for obvious reasons with the Stratford station there. But also we're proposing 8-foot shoulders, whereas right now there's basically nothing. There's just a lane. So the 8-foot shoulders will accommodate bikes and also a car to bypass a car looking to take a left-hand turn that's stopped. So the wider shoulders will address the bike traffic and also it'll allow cars to bypass cars that are stuck in the intersection. So we thought that was the kind of the low impact way of addressing operations and also accommodating bikes. Mhm.
The same subject. South, northbound is also.
Correct. 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 Good question. And the same thing applies southbound and northbound. So there is a left turn restriction onto, is that Frog Pond? Oh, I'm sorry, Broad Bridge. So there is a northbound left turn restriction onto Broad Bridge. And that's because there's not enough width. As I talked about before, if there's one vehicle that wants to take a left turn there, there is no room for the through vehicles to bypass that vehicle. So they're just stopped there. So to avoid that, because they are very closely spaced intersections, the left turn restriction was imposed. By widening and having wider shoulders, we could eliminate that and remove the left turn restriction. I know. Our design guidance does allow for that, but my daughter actually went to driver's ed and I was floored that they teach that you don't do that. We do, people do it. We allow it. I understand where you're coming from there, but our design standard actually specifically mentions a bypass lane with the shoulder, with a painted shoulder. Good point. Sure. So the question, is there a proposed sidewalk on Longbrook? And the answer is yes. If you can see on the screen there, I don't know if you want to point that out with the pointer, but there is a sidewalk on the south side. That orange strip right there is a sidewalk that goes straight across the bridge and onto US Route 1 on one side. It's a free for all. Which should be addressed in another project.
Does that, it needs to be integrated with the internet. Then also runs back to
So I just pause for a second. So for the people online that might not have heard that, discussion centered around traffic impacts on US Route 1 and other intersections beyond Longbrook.
Safety issues. There. Very little here. Now, my other question is. Regarding the time feasibility and putting information included and posted on. Number hearing. That's why I mean, this study.
So the request for the folks online was, there's a feasibility study that was completed by the department for time improvements for the whole Metro-North corridor. There's requested for that to be posted online so that everyone has access to that.
Please.
Yeah. So I'm getting the thumbs up that we'll try to post that online for you. Yes.
Trees not top records, things.
So just make sure the decorative portion on top of Main Street, is that what you're talking about?
Distinctive, half of it's got. Ed Whitman's going. Bill, platform, lose some width, it's kind of narrow in the case, kiosks, and they have a restaurant there.
All right, so the first question was the decorative piece on top of Main Street. Will that be donated or how that will be handled? We'll work with OEP on determining where that will go. I don't see any reason why we couldn't donate that decorative piece if needed. And then the second part was with the train platforms. We're early in the design. We're hearing your comments now, and we'll try to incorporate them as we can. Got a thumbs up. Thank you. Sir in the back.
Good weather and sitting outside. I'm just reading you guys consider.
So the question was, have we investigated the noise of the trains in the area? And we have a study with our OEP section of the department to study the noise for this project. That should probably be completed by summer. And one thing to note is the improvement of the ballast deck bridges. We're hoping to have a reduction in noise from that pounding of those bridges.
I have a question.
Yes.
I was on the West Bridge myself, private, and the truck company directly from East. Why does the rail company not have signs 30, 40 feet in front of the swings that says, if you hit the sign, the trucks that try and get them.
That's a great question. So the question for the folks online was, why is there not a sign or some sort of, ordinance ahead of time to prevent trucks from entering or, hitting the bridge? We are well aware of bridge hits. Part of this project is to make sure that these bridges are stronger. With each bridge hit, not only it's impacting folks below the bridge, but it is forcing us to take a track or two out of service during operation in order to do an inspection, any maintenance concerns. We will make sure we have proper signage on these bridges. Our hope is that in the increase in vertical clearance on a number of these, we will reduce the bridge hits. I hope that answers your question. Yeah. Very.
On Main Street, the sidewalks on Main Street have a barrier over them. As great, but none of the other bridges seem to have. King Street is heavily used by Stratford high students, and every time it snows, it's like nobody takes responsibility. So will these new sidewalks, will they have a barrier to protect pedestrians? And the other question I have is, will these increase fees? Will they also have impact, and will they also have
All right, so the first question was, will there be protection for the pedestrians under these bridges, or will snow be cleared? On Main Street and Bishop, we'll have piers, and so there's a physical barrier there. At the other locations, we're widening the shoulder, so hopefully there will be a larger partition between the drivers and the pedestrians on the sidewalks. We're also increasing the sidewalk width. To answer your question about snowplow and snow removal, the local sidewalks, that would be a town question when we could, talk with town and see how we answer that. And then your second question was, will these improvements be conveyed to Amtrak? Absolutely. Freight lines, I believe there's already a maximum speed in this area that's lower than this. But yeah, Amtrak will, benefit from this. Sir.
This project was not included. Contracts. Between the contractors. Make more sense for everything in one package, one contract.
Right, the comment was, it might make sense to put this out to bid as one contract instead of several contracts. We're looking into how to bid this project, maximize speed and efficiency on it. We haven't come to any conclusions on that. We will take your comment. Thank you. Thank you. The comment was New Haven, Hartford, Springfield was one contract, and there's hope for that this maintains as one contract. Mayor. Broadbridge is on the north side, correct? So the question was, did we investigate making Broadbridge a one-way? I believe the answer is no. That was not, consideration. Is there any other comment on that though, Mayor? Yeah, I'll let Tim answer this.
Let's go back to that. So great question. So kind of like a one-way couple. So you have one way on Linden and then one way on Broadbridge. We really didn't want to restrict movements as much as possible because we know that that could lead to better level of service, but it also could put an encumbrance on people on that street if we turn it into a one-way street. So we really tried to keep the operations existing and not make any drastic changes. But to your point, that could be something the town could explore at a later date, but we didn't include it in our traffic analysis.
Well, if it happened to make that rather than do it now, what do you do?
Mhm.
You had to go somewhere.
Mhm.
And you only have commercial.
It's a good comment.
I'll answer your question and then I'm going to go to.
Just down drastically. It's not so big. If it was down a foot, it's flooding. That we consider.
Bishop Avenue, you said the question was, are we addressing flooding issues on Bishop Avenue? Believe we're considering a pump station at Bishop Avenue as well. So yes, we are looking at that. Our gravity systems for drainage will investigate. And then if those we can't get to standard, we will consider a pump station as well. We got.
So, Dr. Gray, you have a question? I think the question fully used by
Yeah, the design team investigated Bruce Brook extensively to see if there was ways to, reduce the flow at that location. It's a, pretty high flow area. A lot of the investigation focused with respect to the Bruce Avenue Bridge. And that's where we came up with ideas to improve the gravity system there, as well as the, potentially putting a pump station at Bruce Avenue. The other comment was about Tanner's Brook, the old masonry culvert under there. I don't know if we've investigated if we need to do any repairs to that yet, John, but we will, if we are rehabbing this whole region, we'll see if we need to do any repairs to that storm drainage system. Any other questions before I start? Some more online questions. All right, will there be any impacts to our navigation from any track/bridge work over the waterway? This project doesn't include any major waterways like the Housatonic River, so we're not going to be impacting those navigable waterways. The next one, what if there is no room for an easement and/or the easement will interrupt business operation? That's a Matt question.
Can you restate that question, Aaron?
Yeah, so the question is, what if there's no room for an easement and/or the easement will interrupt a business's operations?
We don't anticipate a situation right now where the easements would encroach into any buildings where it would, where there wouldn't be room to, because we're talking about room for a contractor to work or to install a fill slope when they adjust the bridges. If for whatever reason, as a result of our acquisition, it was determined that it impacted, the operation of the property, if it was a business, that would be in consideration. So when we are determining the fair market value of an acquisition, we look at not just the, the raw land value of of that particular area, but also how the acquisition impacts the rest of the property. So if our acquisition did impede with the use of the property and the remainder of the property of business on site, that is taken into consideration when they appraise the property. Hope that answers the question.
It's accelerated. bridges.
Correct.
You have a state here where you-
So the question was, this is accelerated bridge construction. Do we have a staging area to build these bridges? And the answer is not yet. That'll be part of our, final design project. Yeah, as part of the design of this project, we have to evaluate locations to build these. The next question we have, will you clean the culvert in the back of the train station where Main Street is near 995? I believe last year, a maintenance contract did occur for that culvert and did clean that out. Why isn't an overachieving strategy / plan for the several phases of the TIME program being put out? What is the timeline / budget / phasing / time saving for the entire plan? Question earlier on asked for the feasibility study that was going to be uploaded for time savings. The CT websites have some other details on there. I don't know, Yuri, do you want to add anything to that? All right. And the next question is, what about clearing culvert on side of rail bridge next to King Street? I believe that's the Tanner's Brook culvert. I assume the town has a maintenance program for their culverts or something like that. Okay. More discussion on that one. Will Stratford receive full 10 to 12 car platforms as part of this project? The short 4-car platforms increase dwell times. We've talked about that, the extension of those platforms a few times tonight. Refer folks to that previous answer. And then why is so much focus on the vertical roadway clearance, especially when crossing local roads? This is from the email. As we stated before, there's a number of bridge hits from taller vehicles on these bridges. They cause local traffic impacts. They cause us to have to take the tracks out temporarily. So that is the focus for increasing vertical clearance. It also damages the bridges that we don't want to occur. All right, the next question. For bridges where the sidewalk is being fully reconstructed or newly added, please consider adding a grass buffer or stamped concrete buffer in addition to the proposed sidewalk width. A 5-foot sidewalk immediately adjacent to a curb drop-off and moving traffic is not a comfortable pedestrian experience. The proposed 5-foot shoulders could be reduced to give more width for pedestrians. Thank you. Why is a dedicated freight track being added on the NEC for 1 CSS local and seasonally 1 P&W rock train per day in each direction? Why wouldn't the freight track presumably be on the wrong side of serving the Stratford branch, even if CSX had any remaining customers there, which I'm pretty sure they don't. Haresh, any input on that one? I think the question is, why is a dedicated freight track being added on the Northeast corridor for 1 CSX local and seasonally 1 P&W rock train? Not sure if I.
So this dedicated track 5, which was used in the past, we are just re-establishing it. We are not adding anything. It was there. Now we are just adding it so that we can make the track 3 free for the train traffic. Right now, whenever there is any freight operations and they have to load or they have to occupy track 3. So what we are doing is we are putting in track 5 so that the train moving on the track 3 can move easily. There is no other purpose for that.
All right. How did the project cost increase from 322 million in the benefit cost memo for the mega grant to 385 million? The project has, evolved since that time. We've included a number of improvements, including some pump stations. We don't have a final estimate for this project at this point. Is the project to upgrade signaling on the New Haven line being coordinated with this? Yes, we are coordinating with Metro-North in the signaling for this project. All right, next question. Any new traffic signals on Main Street and Barnum anywhere? This project is not adding any new signals to that location. Any considerations on intersection improvements at Bruce and Stratford Ave being considered? Anyone know where Bruce and Stratford Ave is? Is that just north of, is it south? Yeah, we're not considering any improvements to the state route intersection with Bruce and Stratford Ave. Also, retaining walls along Linden is falling and needs replacing. Yeah, that's part of the project that was added into the project. That's part of the reason for increasing scope cost. Are there any plans for future parking improvements to the Stratford Station? Yuri, do you know if there's any future and not as part of this project? How would the project interlockings help with the Devon Bridge project? I could answer that probably, Dave. Interlockings can help because it allow track changes from north to south when the bridge project is being replaced. Will faster trains be louder? If so, will anything be done to minimize the noise? There can be an increase in noise. However, the replacement of the ballast deck bridges hopefully will be a big improvement. When can we expect to end substantial continuous track outages on one of the busiest lines in the countries, and what steps are being taken to address this? Why is this section of the Northeast Corridor the only part with this problem? That is the goal of this project, is to completely overhaul this section of track to make these improvements. Any more questions from online? Anyone else have any questions in the room? Thank you for listening to like operational trains. Yeah. So the short answer is, we're going to maintain 2 tracks during the entire operation. And so there will probably be some scheduled changes, but our goal is to maintain all of the passenger trains through this region.
I mean, it's gone faster, obviously.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know the specific change in noise from a train going faster. Sorry. Yeah, and like I noted before, we are doing a noise study and analysis for this project to get those specific answers. Any other emails?
The next question from online is, which section of time will be kicked off next after time?
So the question is, what is the next time improvement project in the corridor after this project? Yuri, you want me to speak about the other projects going on, or they're not related to this project, but they have the Walk Bridge project going on, the Devon Bridge project in the future, and they have several other projects planned. Shannon, any voicemails? No voicemails. Or any other emails? In the meantime, I'll call on you. So there was a request to explain the benefit of ballast deck bridges and the improvement of vertical clearance for the roadway underneath. Ballast deck bridges have the benefit of not having vertical curved, I'll call them sumps at every bridge location. This allows the track maintenance equipment to have a smooth line, allowing for faster speeds. And you can only achieve that when you're not fastened directly to the bridge. So ballast deck bridge is one option to make that improvement. And that's a significant improvement for these bridges. Improving the vertical clearance on the bridge is a significant help because every time these bridges get hit, we have to take tracks out of service, and that creates operational, impacts to the trains. So we don't want bridge hits either. That answer your question?
Yes.
Oh, I know what you're going. Yeah. Sorry.
Your ability to.
So the statement was, the ability to widen the roadway with these bridges. So the ballast deck bridges, the profile of them are thicker than normal open deck bridges. Because of that, we are, balancing increases the roadway clearance as well as, profile of the rail. With the widening the roadways, we have to make our bridges thicker. So every time we, add lanes to our roadway, we're adding more depth to those bridges. So we're, it's an engineering conundrum of how to get the best solution at each of these sites. Sorry.
25 minutes you're trying to say. What specific train are you trying to say that? What stop?
That is a question slightly outside the scope of this project. Paresh, you want to?
You're trying to say 25 minutes. Go to the government, right? And take it to New York. Train. Is that the trick? We're going to measure what train we're going to measure that out. And what stops does it stop at?
So the question from the audience was, what train is the 25-minute goal that is technically not a part of this project going to improve?
So yes, we have a couple of train service. We have the express train that have started also last year. The stops for those trains are New Haven, Bridgeport, Stamford, or New Haven, Stamford, Grand Central. So that's the main savings because this is a stop. If we have a Stratford, it is a stop, but we still have different trains. That's the reason when we do a simulation and look at the different trains, the trains are going to have different savings depending on the train. But as you mentioned, the specific 25-minute train savings, that is the New Haven, Stamford, Grand Central Express train.
My other question is, how many people ride that train every day? I sit down in Connecticut, people build houses, even ask the DOT, that's the specific metric that we can't get. Because if it's a third full, cancel the train. You're wasting resources.
So the question was how many people ride those trains, that there is an experience about a customer, a passenger riding the trains, and that you have requested that information from the CCRC to the department. Yes. So I'll have to get back, with our rail operations team to get that information.
I sit here.
There's definitely the savings, as you mentioned. Well, the question was that the benefit of the trains are in New Haven, Stamford, and Grand Central, and Stratford is not getting the benefit of the trains. Is that your question?
Bridgeport and Stratford. That's where you can get on and get this speed train, this high speed train. So your definition of success, that specific train,
There's going to be other savings. those is, you want to repeat the question? So,
So for the folks online, the question was, the project here, how will it improve the commuter from here? How will it improve your time? And so, part of the question, and I don't know if Yuri's going to add this, is any train that stops here will still have to accelerate from 0 miles an hour from the station out of this area. Projects outside of this area will eventually help commuters from this area.
Okay, traffic trees for 38 years. That's nice. All I want to do is get from point A to point B safely. 25 minutes. So the definition of success. What's your definition of success? One train.
So
That probably 50 people on. And you're spending $400 million.
So for the folks online, there is a question on the definitions of improvement for this project. So part of our purpose for this project is to improve the speed in this corridor, but also at the same time, we are addressing multiple bridges in this area that are deficient all at once, trying to minimize the amount of time that they're disrupting local traffic, disrupting train traffic. Overall goals of the region of trying to improve train traffic, those are, global goals, but hopefully with this project, we're going to replace these bridges as well as a huge portion of this project.
Focus on the strategy. Here's my question. That's your metric. Where are you going to save these 25 minutes? One train.
so just to clarify that, there is a question or a comment about there's only one train with the saving speed. It's not. All trains are saving time. Even if you stop at the Stratford station, with these improvements, the trains have the ability to accelerate to the next stops. So that benefits all of the trains. It does benefit the express trains with the 25-minute, but all trains benefit from this project.
All trains originally behave.
Stratford, even if it's a train, the question was about even it only benefits trains from New Haven. It does benefit trains from Stratford. It does benefit trains from Bridgeport if it's going to New Haven, because they will be able to accelerate in this area. So all trains get the benefit. Different time savings, but they all get the benefit.
Sure.
Yeah, segue. Here that. It's an easy way to figure out saving specific to this segment. They be able to share the spend, how many miles exactly?
It's approximately 3 miles of track. Thank you. See a few more questions that have come in from online. You wanna... Haresh, this might be for you. The track class is being upgraded to a class 6, which can have speed up to 110 miles an hour. 90 miles per hour speeds have been mentioned here. Are there geometric constraints preventing speeds greater than 90 miles an hour? This project's goal is to get us to 90 miles an hour for max authorized speed. A Class 6 track is a maintenance standard, and that is our goal for this project. Will the use of accelerated bridge construction technology for this project become standard for bridge projects? Val, do you know the answer to this? Will ABC become standard for all bridge projects?
Hi, everyone. I'm Bao Xiong, Principal Engineer of the Major Bridge Group. So I just to answer the question, yes, the ABC is our, the first choice for any bridge construction to save time. And from there, we're going to save on the money. So we will try. So these are railroad bridges, but we will also use the same or similar techniques that we use for highway bridges. Thank you.
Was this project designed to meet the specific overall goals of the New Haven to New Rochelle Northeast Corridor capacity and trip time planning study? Jerry, do you know the answer to that? Was the project designed to meet the specific goals, or specific overall goals, the New Haven to New Rochelle Northeast Corridor capacity and trip time planning study? Answer is yes. Any other questions from online? Any other questions from anyone in the room? Ma'am.
Back to why don't you explain by moving from 14?
Yeah, so the statement was to recommend us explain why moving from a 12-foot center to a 14-foot center is beneficial for these projects, for train traffic. And the answer is, with future trains moving at 90 miles an hour in either direction next to each other, the goal is to make it so that they don't blow out each other's windows and keep 90 miles an hour, a net of 180 miles an hour, have a safe distance from one another. Is that a good answer?
Yeah, plus the super elevation.
Right, and yeah, in the locations where we're banking the track, the super elevation, and the trains are tilted, we have to have a larger profile between them. Any other questions from online?
Where there's no straight stretch, but there's no bridge. Are you raising that section?
The question was, are we raising the track over the sections where we have no bridges? I believe it's just a nominal increase though, right? Yeah, so the main track raise is in the Main Street area. We're raising about 2 feet. The main track raise we're increasing is at Main Street where it's about 2 feet and it's going to be sloped in either direction. Other locations in the area, they'll have some nominal changes to elevation, but not as significant as that. I think I saw, sir.
Between over and Haven, each train saw 90, so they're not going to be improvement because out there it just seems like it's more flat and more open. It's not just like a very good structure.
The question was, are there any improvements or can trains travel at 90 miles an hour outside of this project in Milford or Bridgeport? The answer is, I believe, no. I don't think there's any 90 miles an hour section outside of, there's no 90 mile per hour sections outside of in Milford or Bridgeport. One more question. Yes. Yeah, so the question was to provide some more information on why interlocks are so beneficial to train traffic. And the response is the operational efficiencies that come out of being able to move trains from one location to another, whether there's maintenance, site visits, or you name it in the area. Being able to move trains around helps, just like if you are moving a train or a vehicle around on the highway. If you're passing someone on the highway, that's an operational improvement. It also allows the Metro-North to move trains around for any other regional need that they need. Hopefully that answers that.
Well, give computers. For example, you have an interlock, you can potentially forward to the interlock. Four hours to 2 hours. Then you're very bad.
Thank you. Is that it? One more? Two more.
What level of super elevation is being used on the curves?
The question was what elevation or what level of super elevation is being used on the curves? I believe it's a maximum of 6 1/4 inches super elevation.
Are there any plans to improve the east side maintenance, Bridgeport, like painting the building and other items?
The question was, is there going to be any improvements to the east side maintenance buildings or operations? We will have to direct that question to Metro-North. All right. Sir. Any more what? For this project or other projects? So the question was, will we have any other meetings like this for this project? I don't think we'll have any other meetings like this, but we will make sure we have public outreach during the construction phase for any detours or any other of those operations.
So this is the first. It can be more meetings, depends on the feedback from the public. But
Thanks. And just to remind folks online that the question and answers comment period is open until May 9th. Tom, can you get to the last slide, please? We could be reached at DOT project 300-214@ct.gov. Thank you very much.